Welcome to the WPIAL Blitz Show, Hershey edition. I'm Badge. Right below me this week is Ian. And boy, we're honored to have Coach Bob Wolfram to start the show with us from Wyoming. And Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm up past my bedtime. I'm 70 years old. You guys run this show pretty late.
Well, that's what Jeff Lang said last. It was past his bedtime there too, mine too. But I stay up late for Ian every week. It's been a lot of fun. So, Coach, just a story that I want to relate to the fans and what have you that I've kept with me over the last couple years here. As I remember your first padded practice. Last year, we're sitting on the bench in the practice field, and you're telling me, said, you know what? These guys out here next year have a really good shot to be a state champion. And lo and behold, look at what's come to fruition. The fact of you're back in Hershey, you're with 2012 champions, you're back in Hershey this year. How do you see that in your players, that they've got the skill level and the drive to get to that level of excellence?
Well, the similarities between the two teams, first of all, both the senior class of 2012, the football team, and this year's senior class had over 20 players in that class, and that's large for us. If we get 15, that's a lot. And not only do we have, I think it's 23 seniors, but there's a lot of skilled players there. It's not just numbers. And they've all been playing together. Hardly anybody comes in from the outside. We sort of live and die on it. It's a community program. Most of the kids that play for us went to kindergarten in our school district.
Sure.
And they've been playing together since they were young. They've been successful all those years. Our youth program does the same thing that we do. And, by last year, I think we only had 3 starters on either side of the ball last year that were leaving the program after last year. And we did very well last year. As you know, we made it to the state playoffs last year. And we knew with all those people coming back and the numbers and the depth that we had, we'd have a shot at making a run. You never know. But, last year we had Zach Zeckman get hurt in the first game of the season. You can't predict that kind of stuff. But we thought if we stayed away from injuries and got to play, we weren't sure about that this year, that we'd have a shot to get there. And like I said, you never know. There were people out there that, Middletown's always a handful, and we didn't know what to expect last week till we got on the field. So, but it worked out. And, I impressed myself that I predicted this last year. I don't usually say that, but yeah, you could see it coming.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And congratulations on reaching the state championship game for the second time in school history. So just sort of scouting Central Valley here, from the WPIAL side, they were in the state final last year, only graduated a couple players, a large senior class, kind of like your team. So how do you expect them to, match up with you guys? Well,
I was just talking to some of our coaches this morning, and I said, in 2012 we played Imhotep Charter in the semi and Aliquippa in the final, and I remember watching both of them for the first time, thinking, oh my God, this is the amount of speed and talent on the field was really impressive, and I knew we had our hands full. And when we looked at the film after the game Saturday night, I thought, same darn thing. They're impressive. They're really athletic, and they got a lot of speed. They're very physical, and just like in 2012, I said, we got our hands full.
They're only a couple miles away from Aliquippa too, so you have some history with the Beaver Valley programs here.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Well, Coach, I saw a graphic today that of active coaches in Pennsylvania, you're second all time in wins. What would a second state championship mean for you and the school? Look, I live in town here, so this is more for the WPIAL guys out there. What's that going to mean for you in the program?
Well, it's funny. We were the first Berks County team to win a state championship, and I think there's only been one other that even made it to the state final. And to get a second one would be, tremendous. It's not all that easy to get there. And having gone through it one time, it was a great. I mean, we've been in 4 semis, so we're 2-2 in semis. But when you get that far, you're seeing a lot of really good people. I know that Aliquippa team had a couple of D1 backs that we were seeing play on TV for the next couple of years after we had played them. And of course, we had Alex Anzalone, who's playing for the Saints now.
Yeah.
But when you get to this level, everybody has somebody like that, and teams that make the state final, there's no accident. There's a reason they're there, and to get to that level special, and to get a win there would be really special, and a second win, for the history of Berks County and in this level would be really nice.
So,
Ian, you got another question?
Just real quick, Ross Tucker, who does announcing for CBS Sports now, he announced a number of state championship games too. Wanted me to pass on good luck to you guys. I've been chatting with him on Twitter a little bit. So Ross says good luck. And
that's great. Ross really supports our program, and he came through our program, and we got a big picture of him on the wall with the Redskins, and I think we put him in on a Redskins jersey. But it's pretty neat when you get some guys that are playing in the pros from your program, and especially Ross with his media.
Yeah.
Outlook now. I mean, he does the Army games on Saturday. My son happens to coach up there at the Army prep school, and they get together once or twice a year, and Ross always gives him a shout out too, as well as Why I'm Missing. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, he messaged me earlier in the week and said, the one year I'm not announcing the state championship games is when my alma mater makes it. So send me any articles you find about the game, because I want to read everything I can. So, yeah.
Yeah, but he would have had to recruise himself. I mean, there's no way. I mean, did Ross do the 2012 game?
Yes, he did, and he held his emotions in check really well until like the very end, when he admitted to everybody that he was a Wyomissing grad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, Coach, it's from a Berks County perspective. We're all very proud of you. From a District 3 perspective, we're all very proud. Really appreciate your time here tonight. I know it's a busy time or what have you, but best of luck this upcoming, let's say you guys play Friday, right?
Right, Friday afternoon, 3:30, I think.
Well, I'll be on the sidelines, so like I always tell you, they let anybody in there, and fortunately, they're letting me in there. And it's if there's any other place I'm sure that you would play other than the A field, it would be out in Hershey Park Stadium. So, I'm looking forward to it. And, we want to, for speaking for Ian, thank you very much for joining us. I got a lot of friends on the team and over there. So best of luck, my friend, and I will see you Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. Yep, just exit out.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
All right.
Great.
Wow, Bob Wolfram.
This is absolutely
the school is 2 minutes from my house. I've got a lot of friends over there. I'm just being honest, with all of the fans out there in the WPIAL too. We're fans first, okay, and why we're involved in high school sports. And when Coach talked about why I'm missing, and they're just kind of stuck there. Yeah, they are. I mean, it's just a community. I mean, there's no expansion or that's going to happen with why I'm missing. It's always going to be, a 3A school. And just kind of like what Coach Kasperowitz said, last week, that 10-mile radius of, the kids that come in there are, like you said, they're going to be fat and slow, or they're going to be big and fast. And boy, Bob's got some big and fast ones, and we're going to, talk a little bit about there too. We're waiting for Mark Lyons to join us here from Central Valley, hopefully momentarily. But, Ian, what are your thoughts on WPIAL? Just, from the 40,000 foot view, I guess.
Yeah, this is absolutely the game of the weekend in Hershey between Central Valley and why I'm missing, which I'm really happy and thankful we were able to get both head coaches on the show here.
Again, second week in a row, man. We got the matchup of the week. We got both head coaches of the matchup of the week in the state. So, hey, how about that?
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool. And I think all year you and I have kind of been talking about, I've said, I think Central Valley is the best 3A team in the state. And you're like, well, hold on, we got a pretty good program out here and why I'm missing. We'll see what happens. And, as the season went on, it really looked like these two were on a collision course to meet in Hershey. And, Central Valley's mercy ruled all their opponents. I think why I'm missing's either mercy ruled everyone or come pretty darn close, because they're both just been killing everyone all year and have clearly been the cream of the crop in 3A. So it's great to see them matching up in the championship game and actually giving us the game that we hoped we would see, that, no one got upset along the way. And, both of them have proved to be head and shoulders above the rest of the crop. And, Central Valley was there last year, lost in the championship game to Wyoming area. Central Valley had a 14-0 lead, and Wyoming stormed back and scored 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter and won the game 21-14. So this Central Valley team all year has really been on a mission to make it back to Hershey and win the state championship game. So much so that Amir Dudley, their star quarterback, at the beginning of the year said he was giving up video games, which, like, for an 18-year-old kid to say he's giving up video games so he can focus on football, is just
look, the guy's going to Harvard. Okay,
well, he is going to Harvard, but he's, and the thing is, like, he's a really good quarterback, but they've been so good on the ground this year, he's hardly had to throw the ball. I mean, he's thrown well when he's thrown, but they've run the ball so well that he hasn't had to put it in the air all that much. But you're right, he's going to Harvard, which is a great story. Central Valley, 11-year-old program. They were formed by the merger of Center and Monaca, and Coach Lyons, who should be joining us shortly here, was actually the coach at Monaca. So he's been involved with the area since the mid-'90s. I think 96 was when he started at Monaca, and then got the job as Central Valley's first and only head coach for the 11 years there as well. So, you talked about how many wins that Coach Woodward has at why I'm missing. But, Coach Lyons has a lot of wins too. I mean, not nearly as many. I think he's got like 170 or 190, somewhere around there in total. But not nearly as many as the 280 some that Bob has out in Wyo.
What's that?
How many wins does Bob have? Like 280 something?
Oh, no, it was 3. There was some debate going on here today whether he had 323 or 322. I
Oh,
think they
okay.
had him listed like online at 323, and then somebody said no, he's at 322. I'm trying to get Coach Lyons here a little email to see if he was going to be joining us here. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was
live TV.
yes. Yeah, I was just pulling up the list. It was 323 was what the Eastern PA football site had him at. So yeah, so really, I mean, but between the two of them, I mean, that's over 500 wins between the two of them, and we'll talk about Jim Roth at Southern
Yeah,
Columbia
that's like
breaking
a
the
whole
record,
nother
which is that's just a whole
All right.
nother
Well, why don't we
story.
go ahead and get started with the rundown, and then
Sure.
hopefully Mark will be able to join us.
Yeah, we can do that. That sounds good.
So you should be able to go ahead and do that. There we go.
There we go. All right. So we are here. We've reached the state final. We've got the 6 championship game matchups, which we will run through here. Starting in 3A, because that's the premier game of the week. That's the one we are talking about. We obviously just talked with Wyomissing's head coach, hoping to talk to Central Valley's head coach here in a second. But in the semifinals, like we said, they've been killing everyone all year. They pretty much continue to do that. Central Valley really just ran all over Bedford. 49-20 wasn't even indicative of how much of a blowout that game was. Central Valley did it all over the field, on the ground, on defense. 9 sacks, 21 tackles for a loss for Central Valley's defense in that game, which is just some incredible defensive statistics that, they were well into the mercy rule in Bedford.
All right, Mark's here.
Touchdowns. Oh, great. Excellent.
All right, so why don't you stop share? And Mark Lyons is joining us.
Great. All right, guys.
Hi, Mark.
How are you doing?
Great. Waiting to see that face of yours. And there it is.
There we go.
Wow.
Thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to you guys on winning the WPIAL title and reaching the state championship game for the 2nd straight year. We just got done talking with Wyomissing's head coach, so this is obviously the premier game of the week in the state. You two have kind of been on a collision course all year that, both of you guys have been blowing out your opponents all year. You've won all your games by mercy rule. They've done pretty much the same. So, you guys were here last year. Your team's obviously talked all season. We talked about how Amir Dudley kind of gave up video games so that he could focus on the season. So you guys have had this as your mission all year. So congratulations on making it back. How are you feeling heading into Friday's game?
Yeah, great. It's great time around Central Valley right now. Obviously getting back to state championship game, and our guys are excited and ready to go.
Great. That's excellent. So, have you had a chance to watch any of Wyomissing's film yet? How do you feel like you match up against them?
Absolutely. I mean, what a tremendous football team they have. Efficient. That's the word I'd like to be used. I'm going to use right now, only because, the coach has been there a long time at their program, and they run a unique offense that we don't see often. And they're very efficient at what they do. So we're going to have our hands full Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it's a very high percentage type of offense. They, I think with the exception of that one highlight that's been all over the internet where that goal route, a guy made a one-handed grab. They always seem to. They run an offense where they're not beating themselves yet. It still seems to be very balanced. It's a passing game that's going to be high efficient, and this year they've got a good group of seniors. But talk a little bit about your team on what you think the strengths of your team are going to match up well against Wyomissing.
Well, I think we got to be just as efficient and finish drives. Wyomissing does a great job of running their offense, which, may limit your chances. They really control the time of possession. And I think it's real important that when we do get the ball, we gotta finish drives. It's gotta result in some points, and we get an opportunity. Again, when the field position's advantageous to us and an opportunity presents itself, we got to capitalize. We can't come away with too many empty drives.
Do you have any added pressure by coming so close last year and now making it all the way back to the championship game this year?
No, I mean we don't look at it as added pressure. We look at it as we're excited to be back. We're happy to be back. You know, that's what we work for. That's what our guys been striving for, and to get another opportunity. And you know, I don't know if anybody would have realized back in May, June, if we had a football season.
Right.
So we are very fortunate right now to be in a position to play Friday for the state championship, and our guys are excited and really, really fortunate and ecstatic to be playing.
Yeah, and this is a really special group of players. I mean, you've had some great players come through from your time coaching Monaca through coaching at Central Valley. How do you feel like this team compares to some of the other teams you had that won WPIAL championships? This is your fourth appearance in a state championship game. So how do you feel this team compares?
Well, Ian, it's funny you bring it up. I'm actually sitting here watching Jordan Whitehead right now on Monday Night Football, and I wouldn't mind putting him back in a Carolina uniform for one night again. But you know what? We did. We've been fortunate. We've had our share of quality players, and it's tough. I don't want to get into that battle of comparing teams. Each team is their own identity. They've done things different in their own way. This group has kind of set himself apart, obviously, amongst everybody else. They're back here back-to-back years. It's a group that's, they got a lot of pride and want to finish what they came up a little short last year.
Yeah, and Bruce and I were talking that so you've got over 180 wins in your career, and Bob Wolfram over at Wyomissing has like 320 wins. So between the two of you, that's like over 500 wins, high school football victories, facing off in one championship game. So it's a really prestigious matchup between two really excellent head coaches. So congratulations to you guys on making it this far. And this is going to be a really good matchup. We're really looking forward to it. So Wyomissing won one state championship back in 2012, beat Aliquippa. So now another Beaver County team gets another shot at them. This is only their second appearance in the state final. So what would, obviously you mentioned your group came up a little short last year. What would winning the state title mean to Central Valley?
I'm not so sure I can put it into words right now. Obviously, I guess it's that final missing piece that in our short time being Central Valley, our 11th year, that we've been fortunate enough to have quality players and quality people part of our program, and it's that last piece that we want to put in our resume to say we're a program that's consistent and that's have accomplished the necessary goals and put yourself up in the other, just to be mentioned with other programs that have won the state championship.
With the kind of the change in the way that the PIAA is going about the state tournament or whatever like that, being like a 3:30 game on a Friday, are you just heading over to Hershey like same day?
No, actually, Bruce, we are actually going to leave the night before.
Okay.
I know it's probably not the ideal situation, but I'm not so sure it'd be beneficial for us to get up, 8 o'clock in the morning, make that long 4-hour bus drive. And I just don't know we would have anywhere to get together because I know the PIAA has put some guidelines, and we're expecting some more additional guidelines about how we can get into a locker room, how many can even use a locker room.
I saw where you can't, other than to use them for the bathroom, you're going to be out on the field.
Absolutely. So, I don't think that gives our players any kind of advantage or comfort level to prepare for a game of this magnitude. Our school district's been tremendous, and they want to give our kids every opportunity with as much safety as they can and to give them a great opportunity to be successful. And as we met, we thought the best way was to go out the night before. And our district and our administration have supported that, and I commend them for that. So, yes, we're going to travel Thanksgiving Day.
Well, hey, look, you can always have another Thanksgiving, following it if you win the championships, right? I mean,
Yeah, well,
that's your
listen,
Thanksgiving.
I'm not so sure too many kids are complaining right now. I know it probably puts some strain on families and juggling dinners, but we got a great fan base. Our parents are super. Our players are very super as far as understanding how things are constantly changing in this world of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when all the dust settles, I think everybody wants to know what is best for our kids at Central Valley to succeed. And we feel this is the best way to approach this game, and they've supported it.
Well, that's fantastic. Ian, anything else for Coach?
Yeah, I got to ask one final question. So, since Mike Warfield, who is an assistant under you, took the job at Aliquippa, he hasn't beaten you yet, and Aliquippa's had some really, really good teams. So, what have you been able to do to continually have his number?
Well, I guess we've been fortunate. It's been a joy to coach against Mike, knowing what type of coach he was for us, and knowing he'd have success. But it's kind of like a friendly little battle right now. It's funny because I think if we both stood off to the side, we'd be watching each other's offense and defensive systems go to work. And but I don't know if it's anything special that each one of us are doing to have each other's number. I'm sure as Mike continues to build his resume, he's going to find time to get our number. I'm just hoping by that time I'm not around anymore, so I can still have bragging rights at some point.
Well, Coach, listen, thank you very much for your time. Hey, listen, I'll be on the sidelines Friday for the game, so I hope to be able to shake your hand, meet you in person, and I wish you all the luck in the world. So
thanks.
We will see you Friday.
Hey, great. Thanks, guys. I enjoy what you do with high school football and putting this together. It's I know a lot of people look forward to this weekly show. So my hats off to you guys. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Your team's been an absolute treat to watch this year. I mean, they've just been so much fun. It's so many good playmakers all over the field. It's just been they've been an absolute pleasure to follow this year.
Well, thanks, Ian. Appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Hey, we'll see you Friday, okay? Take care.
Great. Thank you. See you guys.
All right. Yep.
Thanks, Coach.
See you. All right, Ian. Okay. Wow. Look at there. Both coaches. If that doesn't get you fired up for like a football game, listen to those two guys. I mean, they just exude what high school football is all about. Like you talked about, 500 wins, what it means for the community. It's like, and it's really tough because you get into situations like this, and the worst thing about it is that somebody's got to lose. Somebody's got to lose. You got friends. I mean, Mark's a great guy. I've got friends on a while. That's the bad part. They got there last year. They're trying to get a state title. I mean, how do you root against either one of those teams? I mean, what great stories.
Yeah, and Coach Lyon's point about getting that final feather in their cap with the state title. So the one thing that should be mentioned is since we went to 6 classifications, the WPIAL had won 3 straight 3A championships. So Beaver Falls won in 2016, and then Quaker Valley won in 2017, and then Aliquippa won in 2018. And Central Valley reached the championship game in 2019, but lost. All 4 of those teams were playing in the same conference. Wow. So it was basically like whoever won that conference was probably going to win the state title. Incredible. But then Central Valley came up like just a little bit short last year. So, to kind of – and obviously Aliquippa, as we've talked about, got moved up to 4A this year, so they weren't in the same conference. But, to kind of keep pace with all their conference rivals, everyone else – they've all won WPIAL titles. The other big ones have won state titles, but Central Valley's lost in the state championship game twice. And the one year they had Robert Foster, who went to Alabama and played for the Buffalo Bills for a little while as a wide receiver, and then Jordan Whitehead the other year, who's now playing safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Yeah. Right now on Monday Night
Well,
Football.
Alex
as we record.
Anzalone, I mean, of
Yep.
the 2012 WIO team still starting or still playing
Yeah, for the Saints.
for, for why I'm missing and, the great legacy of Ross Tucker and everything like that. I mean, wow, you hate to see a team lose on this one, but
Yep.
that's usually the case in just about every state championship game.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, two premier programs, two really, I mean, they've just been head and shoulders better than everyone else. Like we were talking about, we talked about Central Valley semifinal, why I'm missing semifinal. They beat Danville pretty handily, 44-14. They, like you talked about, they have a very efficient offense that, when I was looking at the statistics, it wasn't really any one player, but they had like 5 or 6 running backs that all had, 25 to 30 yards. A couple of them had touchdowns. Jordan Almond ran for 67 yards. He was their leading rusher, but you had a bunch of different guys that all touched the ball, and then Zach Zeckman throwing for almost 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was a really good all-around performance from why I'm missing. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these teams stack up with each other, going head-to-head in the championship game here, 3:30 at Hershey Park on Friday. Both of them undefeated, both of them averaging close to 50 points a game, hardly giving up any points defensively.
I mean, each of them have, they're playing who they can play. I mean, it's conference opponents, which are, a little bit different there. But, the one thing that, that Why Missing does, and I've seen them enough, they have a balanced attack, but there's nothing low percentage about what they're going to do on offense. Okay. They're usually in a position, and, Coach Lyons talked about it, that, they're kind of, grinding it out and ball control and high percentage, everything, passes, runs, defense, they don't have to sell out, I mean, but obviously it's a little bit different story this week when you're facing a team like Central Valley. So just like we always talk about, it's like, who's going to impose their will on their opponent? That's what's really cool about these games.
It is. And the one thing I come down to with a lot of these games usually is, who has the better passing game, because as we saw last week with Pine Richland, who can come back when they get down by a few touchdowns. Right. If you're a run heavy team and are struggling to run the ball, if you get down by a few touchdowns, it makes for a long day for you. But if you have a passing game that can bring you back quickly, like we saw with Pine Richland last week, you can erase some deficits and come back in these games. Central Valley's just, I mean, they're athletically, they're just astounding, what their skill players have been able to do this year. Landon Alexander running for over 1,300 yards, Miles Walker, between rushing, receiving, punt returns, over 1,100 total yards and 17 touchdowns. I mean, he defensively, he's just been all over the field. It's like anytime he touches the ball, he can take it to the house. Sean Fitzsimmons, who's a junior defensive lineman, just got a offer from Pitt and starting to get some more D1 offers. I mean, 17 sacks, 32 tackles for a loss in 11 games. Like, there's NFL players in 16 games who don't put up those kind of numbers.
I thought those were career numbers.
That's this season. That's this season.
This season? 32 tackles for loss?
Yeah. Like, he just, I mean, we talked to Elizabeth Forward's head coach a few weeks ago before the WPIAL championship game against Central Valley, and watching the championship game between Central Valley and Elizabeth Forward, like, Sean Fitzsimmons was unblockable. Like, they just couldn't block him. He was in the backfield every play. Sometimes he like nearly got to the handoff before the quarterback did. Like, it was crazy. His burst off the ball for a high school player is really something special. And Wyatt Missing's going to have their hands full up front with him. I know Wyatt's got some big guys in the trenches.
Wyatt's got some big guys up front, and that I would agree with you that's going to be a key matchup. But Evan Nadrowski, I mean, his numbers aren't gaudy, but the guy's just gonna beat the heck out of you. Offensively, carrying the ball, defensively at the linebacker position. Darren Bruner, I call him the Swiss Army knife because he can do just about everything. Even though he's listed at wide receiver, he does very well on defense. The thing that really differentiates the team this year, Zach Zekman. Zach, just as Coach talked about, he went down with a knee injury last year, and actually his replacement last year is now running back Jordan Allman, who really has kind of emerged the latter part of the season, and Jordan plays well on defense too. So yeah, this is what's great about championship games. How are guys going to game plan to put their players in the best position and yet try and minimize, quite honestly, that athleticism of Central Valley. Probably the last time that WPIAL played a team this athletic was when they won the title over Aliquippa in 2012. So it's been that long. So very interesting.
Yeah, and really, like, picking the sort of 3 or 4 key players to highlight here, I had to cut down on people for both teams because I was looking through the stats, and like I mentioned, that Wyo's team, it's not just the 2 running backs. They've got a handful of running backs that all can run the ball, and they spread the ball around very well on offense, which I found to be very impressive. And Central Valley's got a couple guys that are injured too. Stephon Hall, who's a cornerback / wherever they need him on offense. He's going to Pitt next year as a cornerback, but he plays some receiver, plays some running back. I mean, he'd scored 15 touchdowns this year. He injured his arm in the WPIAL championship game. I think he might have dislocated his elbow. It was pretty bad, but he's out. But obviously, they still were able to handle Bedford pretty easily last week without him. But he's a great player. That is unfortunate. His high school career had to end that way, but hopefully for him, he gets to go out with a state championship. But this is just an insanely talented group. And, you're absolutely right that Wyo's going to the coaches were right. Wyo's going to have to control the clock. They're going to have to run the ball. But they have the ground game to do it. And when you have that many running backs that can be successful, you can keep cycling fresh guys into the game too, which makes a big difference when you're not just handing the ball to one player all the time.
And as I mentioned before, I think that they've got a passing game. It's a high percentage passing game that will keeps you honest. That you can't just play for the run. I mean, they'll throw some stuff out there to Bruner and the tight end. Not down the field. It's not an over the top kind of passing game, but it's very efficient and it keeps you honest, and it's high percentage. And that's what WPIAL is. It's just all high percentage stuff. They're not going to beat themselves. They just don't beat themselves. And that'll be the key thing that I will look at in this game is, obviously, like we saw the Governor Mifflin Pine Richland game, turnovers. I mean, that was really the story of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Look, I talk about all the time how in these kind of games, man, it really comes down to special teams play on what's going to make the determination. The punting and the kicking is just, it's just an enormous part of the game in championships. And I would expect it's going to be the same here too.
I would think so, and I would add into that like punt and kick returns too, because Miles Walker's taken a few to the house this year, and Central Valley's got with the athletes they've got a really good return game. So in not even taking things to the house, but just being able to flip the field and get your drive started across midfield with a good return.
Absolutely right. You look at what Pine Richland did. They always on the kick returns they always started with good field position. They never got stuck back in there. Their special teams on the kick returns were good. So yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll see what happens. I am so happy I'm going to be on the sidelines for that game.
Yeah, it's the game of the week in the state. It's really exciting. We can run through the other state championship games before we give our predictions, but I think you know who I'm picking in that one. So
I think so.
not much of a.
Hey, I like button heads with you. You know that.
It's fun.
That's what this is all about. It's all about that's what this is about. Teams and leagues and everything else. So we're fans first.
Exactly. So in 6A, we've got St. Joe's Prep, who more or less was able to get a bye to the semifinals and then beat Souderton, which that score is not nearly indicative of how much of a blowout that game was. It was like 51-0 or 51-6 at halftime. St. Joe's Prep took their starters out, and then Souderton stormed back with a running clock and scored like 43 points under the mercy rule, which was pretty incredible. But St. Joe's Prep's quarterback, Cal McCord's going to Ohio State, and they pulled him in the second half and probably would have put him back in if the game got any closer. But on the other side, Central York's quarterback is going to Penn State, I believe. I think he's only a junior. And so this is two of the premier quarterback talents in the state here going head-to-head in the 6A championship game. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read Central York is the first team from York County to make a state championship game.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk about some of that. But, yeah, Central York, good for them. I mean, look, just kind of like in an election, you kind of circle the wagons with the District 3, just like you with the WPIAL. Well, we circle the wagons here in District 3 too. So, having Central York in there, look, anything can happen in these games. Anything can happen. Bo Prabula, really an outstanding talent. Like you said, committed to Penn State. He's really showed, basically that team's kind of got on his shoulders these last two games. And, he's just done a tremendous job. And, take it for what it's worth. But, they're, I don't know, maybe half hour from Hershey, whatever like that. And now it doesn't matter so much for them because they're the last game, okay? I was kind of asking that question on the Friday games because some teams are having like Central Valley, they're leaving on Thanksgiving night to go to the game.
Yeah. Well, I think the 1A championship game is at like 11 a.m.
11
on
o'clock
Friday morning. So like that's crazy.
Yeah, well, look, it's not bad for whatchamacallit,
Steel High.
For Steel High, I know.
Yeah.
It's literally it's a half an hour.
Yeah. A little bit farther for Jeanette.
A little bit farther for Jeanette. Disruptive. And, like I talked about, what I saw for these rules on the teams is they're just out on the field. They don't even get to go in the locker room. So,
yeah.
All right. Both teams have it, but I think that team that's coming from far away this time, really, that's not an advantage by any means. But anyway, I didn't mean to digress there, but
yeah, I think St. Joe's Prep is probably the better team here just because of all the athletes they've recruited over the years to that program, which, I'd like to see someone give them a game, though. I mean, Souderton didn't really give them a game. The score was close, but, it was –
Pine Richland beat them in 2017, remember?
They did. That was a special Pine Richland team with Phil Dracovic, and yeah. But really, since then, St. Joe's Prep really hasn't been challenged all that much. So
I don't – look, Harrisburg gave them a game year before last. Harrisburg was in the game almost going into the fourth quarter. They had a chance to tie the game in the third quarter. So, they've definitely had to put out for the games there. Last year against Central Dauphin, they got out early, and I think they kind of cruised. So.
Yeah. So we'll see. You never know. Do you think after this game's over, though, Bo Prabula could just go play for Penn State now? Because they're terrible. They could really use a quarterback right now.
I don't know, but my Indiana Hoosiers have a quarterback. That's all I know.
They do. They look really good this year.
They really. It's a shame. Look, us Hoosier fans, hit lightning in a bottle this year. That's for sure. So.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't mean to digress.
No, that's fine. I'll let you talk about the next one though, because you were at the Pine Richland Governor Mifflin game, and so I'll let you give the recap on that one.
The one thing that I think that Pine Richland, the reason, I don't know how many turnovers they had, but it seemed like the first half, they were turning the ball over, just about every possession, or I think the first three possessions that they had of the first quarter, they turned the ball over.
They got it was they got down 21-0 pretty quickly.
And Mifflin had the ball trying to go to 28, and they fumbled it away. And then Mifflin turned it over, threw an interception. But when they went up 41-19 in the second half, literally, I'm sitting there like, get out. It was a muff punt, and Mifflin got the ball and then went in to go up 41-19 in the third quarter. But if you look at it, it ended up 48-44. So obviously Pine Richland came storming back. Mifflin had a tough time in the secondary. They couldn't seem to defend the post route when they'd spread them out. And clearly, it's a game of matchups. Obviously, the Pine Richland receivers, just beat the Governor Mifflin defenders. You have to give all the credit in the world, but it came down to like the last 2 minutes. It was funny because I told Jan Johnson at halftime, I said, I think this is going to come down to a special teams play. And lo and behold, Wes Grillo kicks that field goal to go up 48-41. And I'm going, oh man. But I told him I thought it was going to be high scoring, and I think I told everybody I thought it was going to be high scoring and very close. And the only thing that really didn't determine it was the field goal. But Governor Mifflin, they distinguished themselves well. I was very impressed with Pine Richland. Boy, I tell you what, I was talking to people along the sideline there, man, just hard hitting game. I mean, everybody was just hitting very hard. And I think, quite honestly, Pine Richland, ultimately wore Mifflin down there as the game went on.
I was listening to it on the radio, and it sounded like Mifflin was kind of having their way on the ground early on, pretty much doing whatever they want. I mean, Brandon Strausser was running all over him. Nick Singleton obviously had a big game. But I think it goes back to what Coach Kasperowitz talked about with us last week. He said when they scout quarterbacks for Pine Richland, that, even at the middle school level, they want guys that can throw the ball down the field, and pushing the ball down the field is kind of part of their team identity. And obviously, Cole Spencer's been a 3-year starter, and
but he won the game with his feet.
He won the game with his feet on a play they'd never run before. Did you see that? He said afterwards, they interviewed him afterwards. He was like, "We've run that play for our running backs, but I've never run it as the quarterback."
Yeah, well, right. You thought that they would go over the top, and they won it on the ground. So
yep.
Hats off to them. It was a great game to be on the sidelines. And so now we move on to the 5A final.
Yep, and Cathedral Prep has gotten here with 2 forfeit wins. The last time they've played was 2 weeks ago against Hollidaysburg. They got a forfeit win over Wyoming Valley West and then over Upper Dublin. So this is kind of an interesting matchup. It's the first time a WPIAL team has played a District 10 team, an Erie team, in the state championship game, because usually they're on the western half of the bracket and face off with each other sooner. But the way it worked out this year, Cathedral Prep had to move up from 4A to 5A because of the success formula. And I don't want to say got a free pass to the state championship game, because they did have to beat Hollidaysburg in the first round. But, with 2 forfeits to get here, I think they probably were the better team on that side of the bracket. I mean, maybe if they played Upper Dublin could have beat them. But I don't know. Cathedral Prep's, it's been a weird year just because of how District 10 did their scheduling too. They put their teams in pods so they didn't have to travel too much. So like Cathedral Prep being in Erie played a couple 6A schools a bunch of times. So they played like Erie McDowell, who was in the 6A semifinals. That was their 2 losses, were both games against Erie McDowell. And then they played like Erie High, and I think Butler was the other team they played. It was a 6A school. So, Cathedral Prep didn't really, they're 7-2, but didn't really play many other 5A opponents, although Pine Richland just moved down from 6A to 5A. So I think Pine Richland's the better team, but Cathedral Prep's kind of been hard to gauge this year. I guess we do have a sort of head-to-head slide here. And Cathedral Prep's numbers, just because they, their record is 7-2, but with some of those games being forfeit wins, they really haven't actually played that many games out on the field this year. Pine Richland obviously has Cole Spencer at quarterback, which, he's going to Penn on a wrestling scholarship, which makes me kind of sad that this will be his last football game of his career. I really wish he was playing at the next level, just because, that kid's just so good. He's so fun to watch play the game. And you can tell he just enjoys being out there and competing. Eli Yoakum at receiver, Miguel Jackson on the defensive line, Luke Miller at linebacker, who,
he had a heck of a game.
23 tackles, which was a school record in the semi against Governor Mifflin. So Pine Richland won, as you mentioned, the state title before in 2017. Cathedral Prep has won 5 state championships before. This will be their 9th appearance in a championship game. So, some programs with some history here going head to head. I think Pine Richland's the better team, but like I said, Cathedral Prep's just kind of hard to gauge just because they haven't played that many games and haven't played in a few weeks.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. I can't disagree with anything that you just said. But the unknown is how much did last week take out of Pine Richland? You know what I'm saying? It was a long, hard, tough game, hard hitting, and Cathedral Prep. Man, they got to be frothing at the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there had been any talk about moving any games out of Hershey this year, this would have been the one to do it, because you've got Cathedral Prep coming from Erie and Pine Richland coming from north of Pittsburgh. Oh, wow. And, both having to travel out to Hershey, which is fine. It is what it is. But, if they had to move
it's a ridiculous argument, quite honestly. You play the championships in Hershey or whatever, regardless of who shows up. I know
exactly.
It's COVID and everything else, but, I saw some stuff about how Ohio moved stuff. Hey, look, that's them. That's not us. We play our championship games in Hershey. So anyway.
The only other place I'd want to see a championship game would be at Beaver Stadium, if Penn State was ever willing to let them play there, because that's like right in the middle of the state. But Hershey's a great atmosphere. It's got, they've got all the facilities there.
Yeah, but the other thing is that I guess it would happen the week after the Big Ten season would end, so it's not going to rip up the field, but it's going to rip up the field. Okay,
yeah.
Play 6 games on a grass field in 2 days. If I know that they have a great agronomy program up in Penn State, but I don't think Penn State wants to. I don't think they want to redo their field.
That's true. That's true. Well, it even happens in the WPIAL. They play 4 championship games at Heinz Field, and then they just replace all the turf afterwards, because it by the 4th game, it's torn up. Actually, I went to a Steelers game back in, let me think, it would have been 2008 against Miami. It was a Monday night game, and they'd played the 4 WPIAL championship games that weekend and had a Monday night game against Miami.
And it better not rain.
Oh, it was pouring down rain. That's what happened. It was pouring down rain. The field was a mess because they hadn't had time to resod it. And that was the game. I don't know if you remember it, but the punt actually just stuck in the mud.
Yep, I remember that.
So yeah, I was at that game. It was a miserable game because it was cold and raining. But that was a tale of woe after WPIAL championship games there. Yeah. Moving on to 4A. Thomas Jefferson just annihilated Oil City after an overtime victory over Aliquippa in the WPIAL championship game. Oil City just had no answer for Thomas Jefferson. They did it by air, by ground, by everything. They looked like the defending 4A state champions, even though they graduated most of the players from that team last year. They looked like how you would expect a defending champion to look. They were clicking on all cylinders in that game. And you did the Jersey Shore LS game, right?
Yeah, I was there. Wow. So much tradition at Jersey Shore. For them to, I believe this is their first visit to Hershey.
Yeah,
meant so much to those kids, Coach Gravish, the fans, being this, historical great program. It's great stuff. It's great stuff, but we'll talk about what's going to happen a little later.
You want to recap the game at all?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jersey Shore, they really had a good game, good attack. LS did very well through the air, and but Cam Allison, he was just a spark plug on offense and had a couple of big plays, running the football. Braden Weary, I mean, he had a couple of strikes, and LS, they just couldn't finish, and that was the bad part there. But hats off to Jersey Shore, and we'll see what happens in Hershey. That's why you play the games.
Exactly. And on paper, these two look like really evenly matched teams with, both scoring about 42 a game, both giving up about, 11 points a game, quarterbacks that can throw the ball, strong running game, some good talented wide receivers and players on defense. So I'm really interested to see how this one plays out. I think Thomas Jefferson's the better team, but on paper, you look at the numbers and you're like, wow, these are some evenly matched programs here. You have Preston Zandier. He's committed to Youngstown State as a linebacker, so kind of a wide receiver linebacker. And Caden Hess has been a real spark plug for Jersey Shore with 9 offensive touchdowns, 6 interceptions on defense. That a lot of these guys are two-way players playing on both sides of the ball. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. And like we talked about earlier, that passing attacks really make a difference this time of year, especially if you're a run-heavy team and the other team
we're
can
gonna
come
have
back.
we're gonna have some good weather in Hershey too. It's gonna be in the
So
50s, and it's not gonna be bad. It's always gonna be windy there, but it's not gonna be. I think weather's gonna be as good as we've had in many years.
yeah, so I think the real difference here for me is that Thomas Jefferson's been here before, and their head coach Bill Chirpak knows what he's doing. He's 4-0 in state championship games, and he's I think he was the only WPIAL coach on that list of the winningest active coaches that we had. He's won 284 games. So the only WPIAL active coach on the list, because Mike Smianek just announced his retirement after a long and storied career at Aliquippa and then finished off at Ringgold and Seton LaSalle. But Bill Chirpak is the winningest active coach in the WPIAL, and has 4 state championships under his belt and 9 WPIAL titles, which is the most of any coach. So he knows how to get it done in big games. And I think that gives, but you never know. I think that gives them the edge, but I mean, those first time teams, sometimes they show up and are so hungry for it that it's, that gives them that drive to get over the edge. So I'm excited for this one. I think it'll be closer than people think.
Yeah, I think I think it's very simple. Is who is going to win out? I mean, Jersey Shore is going to punch you in the mouth, man. They're going to be physical and they're going to come right at you, but Thomas Jefferson can run right around you. So so we'll see which one wins out.
Yeah, and TJ's a physical team too. I mean, they got punched in the mouth by Aliquippa and responded. So they've got some tough kids on that team too. It's going to be a good one. And I think TJ's better, but we'll see if they're able to get their 5th. We already talked about the 3A title game, obviously being the game of the week. In 2A, Beaver Falls lost to Wilmington. I mean, if it hadn't been for the Pine Richland Governor Mifflin game, this probably would have been the best game of the weekend, just because of, I mean, 2 teams that wanted to run the ball. Just offensive line play was huge in this one. Wilmington ran all over Beaver Falls. Wilmington's got some big dudes up front in the trenches. I think they averaged like 275 or so on their offensive line. But Beaver Falls fought back and scored a touchdown to get within 2, and then got flagged for an excessive celebration penalty. I didn't see it, but all the reports were that the kid just spiked the ball after he scored a touchdown. So it was kind of a questionable flag, I guess. But then they had to try and go for 2 to tie the game from like the 17-yard line and came up short. And that was pretty much the deciding factor in the game. And Wilmington's moving on to the state championship game to take on Southern Columbia. I mean, these are 2 pretty historic programs. Wilmington faced off against Southern Columbia. I think this will be the 3rd time in 4 years that they're meeting in the state championship game in 2A. and it'll be interesting to see if both teams, both teams are run heavy teams. Southern Columbia is loaded. I mean, Gavin Garcia has been great this year. Their head coach Jim Roth just broke the state record for most wins. They didn't really get challenged by Bishop McDevitt, but they got challenged by Richland a few weeks ago. So two run heavy teams. It'll be interesting to see if Wilmington can win in the trenches and score with them, because that's the big thing. If Southern Columbia is going to score, they're going to get their points. You just have to be able to score with them if you're going to beat them.
Yep.
Moving on to 1A, another WPIAL versus District 3 matchup here with Jeanette against Steel High. So Jeanette's and both of them have freshman quarterbacks too. So how about that? That's pretty cool. Jeanette's freshman quarterback Brad Birch actually didn't play in the semifinal because he got injured in the WPIAL championship game against Clairton. So Roberto Smith, who'd been playing running back all year, stepped in, threw for 274 yards and a touchdown, and ran for 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, that kid just does it all. I mean, he's their kicker too. Roberto Smith has just done everything for Jeanette this year.
James Birch going to play, you think?
It's questionable right now, so we'll see. It's a toss-up. I hope he does. But Jeanette's got a lot of really, really talented players. Even if he doesn't play. James Sanders, who was the quarterback last year, is now a receiver, had 192 yards and a touchdown. Jeanette really just blew. I mean, Reynolds was hanging tight for a little bit, but they just turned the ball over a few times, and Jeanette kind of ran away with it. Jeanette just does that. I mean, their defense has been sort of the unsung hero this year. That defensively they've been outstanding. We talked last week about how many turnovers they forced against Clairton. I think it was like 4 or 5 in the first half, and a couple more in the second half, and did it again against Reynolds, that just kept forcing turnovers, getting short fields, and punching it in for touchdowns. And Steel High had a real tight game against Bishop Guilfoyle. Steel High committed 4 first-half turnovers, but I think it was only 7-0 at halftime, and then Steel High took the lead 13-7. Bishop Guilfoyle scored, and then Steel High kicked a field goal to win it, and then Bishop Guilfoyle had 44-yard field goal.
Yeah, they missed a field goal to win the game at the last play.
Yeah. So, but two historically successful programs here. Both of them have 2 state championships under their belts. Jeanette's appearing in their 4th state championship game, Steel High in their 3rd. Freshman quarterbacks who have kind of thrown the ball all over the place. Birch has thrown for almost 1,700 yards and 28 touchdowns, and Andrew Irby for Steel High's over 2,300 yards and 31 touchdowns. Mackay Flowers, really good, heavily touted D1 recruit at receiver for Steel High, plays defense too. I mean, this is 1A, so all these guys are playing both ways.
Odell Green is really good too.
Green's a hammer, yeah. And Jeanette's kind of stacked all over the field. Brett Birch at receiver, James Sanders at receiver. So it should be a good one. Actually, wow, I have a error on this one. It says, with recent appearances, should be 2007, 2008. They made back-to-back appearances. Ignore this. Never reached a state final.
That's right. That was never there.
No, that was never. That was when I copy
edit
pasted
that out if we were editing.
Yes, but So. Yeah, should be another good game between the WPIAL and District 3, and both teams have scored a lot this year. Steel High's given up some points though, which may be the difference.
They I mean, they've snuck a couple out. They got to the semifinal by scoring a touchdown on an untimed down pass in the back of an end zone, and then kicking a field goal here. So I don't think anything's going to faze them if this comes right down to the end. But it's going to be really interesting. I think there's athletes all over the field here, and that's what you kind of like, because you know what? They're just going to go out and play.
Yeah. Both of these teams have, like you said, athletes all over the field. And it's going to be fun to see a matchup against each other. Unfortunately, they have to play at 11 a.m. So hopefully, the WPIAL's played games at 11 in the morning too, with much less travel than it takes to get to Hershey. And, they're always a little bit sloppy, usually a bunch of penalties, kind of disjointed offensively, especially in the first half, and then teams kind of settle in the second half. But usually for high school kids, those morning games are a little bit sloppier than the evening games. Seems like they always play better in the evening.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for Yeah, it's hard to say that. I got to believe, though, that there's going to be a bit of a, an 11 a.m. game the day after Thanksgiving. But, I would guess, and we don't know the thing there with Jeanette. I got to believe that they're coming out, Thursday night and will be there, stay over on Friday, Steel High. It's no big deal. They'll wear their pads to the game. I mean, they don't need a locker room,
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, hopefully, Hershey lets them shower after the game, so that's gonna be some smelly bus rides going home.
Yeah, and familiarity, Jeanette's been there so much. Steel High's familiar with it, whatever like that. I mean, the stage that they're going to play on, I think both teams, that's not going to be intimidating. That's what I think. I like the fact that I think both of these teams are just going to go out there and play football and let it all hang out. And so we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, we will. And with freshman quarterbacks, I mean, we could see these teams meet the next couple of years too.
Oh, yeah, clearly.
Yep. So taking a look at where we are here with state championship games, obviously the first ones happened back in 1988. Southern Columbia appearing once again this year for the 19th time. Cathedral Prep making their 9th appearance, and St. Joe's Prep making their 7th appearance. Southern Columbia leads the way with 10 state championships, which is just incredible for their program's just been outstanding over all the years. It's just, for the relative size of the school, the district that they have, and how spread out they are geographically, what they've been able to build there's been really, really impressive. Central Valley, we talked about Central York, Jersey Shore have never won a state title before. Pine Richland, Wilmington, Wyomissing are going for their second. Jeanette and Steel High both have 2 under their belts. So, some teams that have won before, and some teams that are, going for their first state title as well. So it's going to be interesting. Central York and Jersey Shore, we talked about appearing in the title game for the first time, and some other teams have been here before. So it's going to be interesting to see, how everything plays out, if that experience plays a factor, or if, the young guns can show up and get it done. Overall by district, I had to throw this one in there just to get another one over on you.
I wonder why. Okay, I wonder why you threw that in there.
WPIAL's won 47 titles, far and away the most of any district. And the District 4, which not only has Southern Columbia, but also Mount Carmel, which has the most wins of any program in Pennsylvania state history. So 2 really storied programs out of District 4 that have won quite a few titles.
And you would never, well, I guess you could probably guess that, but you would never think that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Philadelphia Public League and Philadelphia Catholic League is District 12, which, obviously St. Joe's Prep, but also Archbishop Wood, Imhotep Charter have been very successful at the state level. District 10 up around Erie, Cathedral Prep has won most of their titles, but, Erie McDowell's been around for a while, Wilmington as well, and Farrell has won 2 titles in District 10. So interestingly, Farrell and Wilmington actually both played in the WPIAL for a while and played, then moved to District 10. So Farrell actually won 2 titles in the WPIAL and 2 titles in District 10. And District 3 out in your area, 11 championships. This will be they'll have 30 appearances after this year, which will be the second most of any district. So look at that.
I'll look at that. And
yeah.
and the other thing, when you talk about the finalists, I don't recall District 3 ever having 3 finalists in since clearly since we've gone to 6 classifications. I don't think that we've had 3 District 3 teams in the final 12, but I'm not the same kind of District 3 stats guru that you are for District 7, but
yeah.
No, I mean, it's been a great year for District 3, and having as much representation, obviously, in the semifinals there too.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The districts that have made the most appearances all time are the ones that have the finalists this year as well. So, the ones that have been successful in the state tournament are still very well represented. District 2, Berwick won a bunch of titles for them over the years. District 11 didn't play in the state tournament this year. Some some caveats there with District 11 not playing, but the successful districts have once again put teams in the state championship game, and we'll see where all the where all the chips fall at the end of the day. So here we are.
All right. So
time.
this is the pick segment, huh?
It is.
All right.
All right.
All right.
So,
well, I'll let you start. You lead.
All right. We'll go class by class. I'll go St. Joe's Prep in 6A because I think they're just the better team. Central York's a great story, but I think St. Joe's Prep is just all around better.
And they have, you know what? This is everything. They play, this is their one game. So I don't know whether there's added pressure or not. Central York's going to go out there with nothing to lose. But it's hard to imagine that Central York is, I don't think, look, I think Central York can score with them. I just don't think they can out physical them. But I heard Jeremiah Trotter Junior might not be playing. I heard he might have gotten hurt. So, but I still don't think, I think that physically St. Joe Prep is the reason why they win that game.
Yeah. Yeah. And with, Kyle McCord and I think Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s younger brother's there too, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, just big names, sons of NFL players that
they just have big players.
Yeah,
not big names, but big players.
that too. I can't pick against Pine Richland in 5A, especially after last week, the way they stormed back in that game. I mean, that was probably one of the best state playoff games ever. I mean, that was a game for the ages.
The best, I'll be honest with you, it was really great. What you and I got to talk to Coach Eric on Monday. We spent some time together on the sideline before the game. And then, afterwards interviewing them and being around them and how much it meant for them. He just kind of like, I was standing right there after his huddle. He just kind of like leaped in my arms almost. So it was a lot of fun. I was very privileged to be a part of that. I can't see Cathedral Prep beating these guys. I mean, they are on such a mission.
Yeah. 4A, I got to pick Thomas Jefferson to win back-to-back state titles. It's not an easy thing to do. And like I said, Jersey Shore looks like they have a passing game that potentially could hang with TJ. But I think TJ is just better all around.
Totally agree.
All right.
That's
3A.
all I have to say about that.
The 3A, I can't pick against Central Valley. It's, I've said all along, I thought they were the best 3A team in the state. This has been their mission all year. We've talked in past weeks that usually for District 7 teams that the goal is to win the WPIAL title and then kind of let the chips fall where they may in the state playoffs. If you win the state title, great, but WPIAL titles carry a lot more weight around these parts. State titles are great. They're awesome. They're really cool. But arguments get won over WPIAL titles just because teams have been winning WPIAL titles for a lot longer. So people have long memories here in Western Pennsylvania, as they do everywhere, I'm sure. But it's funny. One of the WPIAL Facebook groups I'm in, someone was talking about how good Clareton had been. And, someone chimed in the comments like, when I was in high school at Wilkinsburg from 1976 to 79, we beat you 4 years in a row. So you can't say anything. It doesn't matter how many WPIAL championships you've won in the last 10 years.
Zoic era.
Yeah. But, we swept you 4 times in a row in the 70s. So there's long memories here. And, but I think Central Valley gets their first state championship to go with their Beaver County counterparts.
The one thing that people don't know about Wyomissing is they have really good secondary. They haven't been tested. They have some very good athletes back there. Linebacker-wise, I think the key is going to be for them to get to the passer, but maybe not, because I think that their back-end defense is like the hidden gem for Wyomissing. They're very good, and tall too. So the key thing is, can they keep the quarterback in the pocket? In my view, and have that pass rush, go after him. So offensively, they're not going to beat themselves. And they will run that high percentage ball control defense. So who's going to flinch first? Who's going to be able to impose their will on the other? Look, I mean, I'm going wild, and we've been hoping for this game since we started this show, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
basically since week 2. Yep.
Right, exactly. Just like we did with Pine Richland and Governor Mifflin last week, we're going head-to-head, you and I, this week with our teams and that's what it's all about. We're fans. These are great games at a high level with good athletes, with great coaches, with such tradition. I mean, is there anything better than that?
No, and this is what it's all about. I mean, that, like you said, that Pine Richland game last week was everything that's great about high school football. Just two good teams hitting hard, playing physical, and they put up a bunch of points, and someone had to win and someone had to lose. If those teams play 10 times, I don't know, maybe one team wins 6 games. I don't think any team could win 7. I mean, those are 2 evenly matched teams, and they played a heck of a game against each other. And it all comes down to they're only going to play one game here. So, who wins this one game? I think one of the reasons I like Central Valley's chances is that they do have a bit of a passing game. And I think if they get behind, I like their chances to come back better than I like WPIAL's chances to come back if they get behind by a couple scores.
And that's why, and I think, like I said, I think WPIAL's chances to win this game are definitely accentuated by the fact that I think they have a secondary that people don't know about because it hasn't gotten tested, and they've got very good athletes. And like I said, it still comes down to, though, Central Valley's got to remain balanced, and how well they're going to run the football, I think, is going to be, a key to that. So just like with NA, who's going to impose their will on the other one there? And Central Valley's got to stop the running game. I mean, I'm not seeing anybody stop Evan Nadrowski, and I think, one time here over a couple years. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to that, obviously picking WPIAL. So next.
2A, we've got Wilmington against Southern Columbia. Picking against Southern Columbia is a bad decision, so I'm not going to do it. But I'm hopeful that Wilmington can at least give them a game and hang with them a little bit. It'd be nice to see them challenged a little bit.
I think that this is going to be a lot closer than what people think. I give Wilmington every shot in the world at this one. And sometimes, we'll see. Obviously, I say this a lot. We'll see what happens. You can't, just as you mentioned, you can't pick against Southern Columbia, but it's certainly not going to be a blowout. And I give, Wilmington a puncher's chance. Maybe they'll land one of those left hooks and, off a left field. And, Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson. So, I mean,
it's true.
So, I mean, I give these guys a chance, but
I
would pick Southern Columbia.
You can win a boxing match with one punch. You got to play 4 quarters against Southern Columbia. That's a little bit different. But I will say, we talked about it. Wilmington's got some big guys in the trenches, and that could, I don't know if Southern Columbia has seen a line as big as Wilmington's line yet this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. I think they have a puncher's chance, but I think they can't turn the ball over. If they turn the ball over, they're done for.
Yeah.
But if they don't turn the ball over, then
that was the trouble last year. Southern Columbia got up so early on like points off turnovers, it wasn't even close. So.
Yeah. And then in 1A, another WPIAL against District 3 matchup.
Great year to have the show, huh?
It is. It has been. It's been so much fun all year. I'll pick Jeanette just because I can't bring myself to pick against the WPIAL team. But, I mean, statistically, the Steel High team is really good. And like you said, they're battle tested. They've been in some close games. But Jeanette's been in some close games, too. I mean, they got challenged against Springdale. They obviously lost to Clareton in week 1 and have gotten better every week since. And then came back and just pounded Clareton in the championship game. And I think Jeanette's defense is a lot better than it's really the hidden gem is Jeanette's defense is really, really darn good. And it doesn't get talked about enough just because, we've talked about before in here, players' defensive statistics are hard to find. They're not easily accessible unless teams themselves submit them up to like Max Preps or somewhere like that. No local newspapers keep defensive stats. So, offensively, they look pretty evenly matched if Brad Birch plays for Jeanette. If he doesn't play, Jeanette's going to have to run the ball and control the game on the ground. And trust their defense to get some turnovers.
Look, Steel High, I don't think that they're going to flinch. I mean, they've come down to the last two games all the way right down to the end. So their experience with pressure pack situations, I love their athleticism. The one thing that I like about Steel High is the fact of it, when they play in the regular season, they're not playing against 1A teams. They don't play there's no 1A teams in District 3. They're playing against typically 3A, 4A teams during the regular season. So physically, I like the fact that they can match up with just about anybody. So that's the reason why I'm going with the Rollers, and that I think that physically they're going to be able to take it to them, and the moment isn't going to be too big. I know Jeanette's been there a lot, okay, and the Rollers are a little bit young, but I think they're battle tested. I think they come out on top.
All right. Well, so we've got two games where we pick differently. So we'll have to do this. We'll have to do a wrap-up show next week to see who had the better predictions.
Yeah,
here.
and to talk about next year and everything else. What we're gonna do and everything else. So yeah, we'll do a wrap-up show and we'll see how it goes. But this show's been an awful lot of fun. I can tell you that. It's been great that it kind of worked out that we've had a lot of teams that have ended up crossing paths with one another that you and I have had the opportunity of covering, knowing, following, friends. I mean, you name it, right?
Yeah, this has been really fun to do all year, and we've built up to this state championship game. We've got 4 teams from the WPIAL, 3 teams from District 3, 2 head-to-head matchups. It's really, really fun, and I think the most exciting thing too, especially this year with 2020 and COVID and everything, is we got all 6 WPIAL championship games got played. Hopefully, we're able to get all 6 state championship games played. For all signs are pointing to them being able to be played so far. So hopefully they are able to be played, and we'll see how they go on the field. But, hopefully we're able to get the conclusion to the season that everyone wants, which is for it to be settled on the field.
Yeah, I agree. What was the nicest thing too is Mark Lyons even said that, that he's liking the show, or that people are talking about the show or whatever like that. So really, when you consider that we really started from nothing,
yeah,
I mean, that we appreciate all of our fans out there that have, followed the show, and Ian, obviously your expertise with all these graphics and putting things together, and the talk. I think that what we talk about is genuine. It's from the heart. I think that that's why the fans really like it, is because that's the way that they follow this game, is, they follow it with their heart. And that's the way that we do the show. So.
Yep. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for suggesting it. It was your idea to do it. So I'm glad we did it. It's been a lot of fun for me to talk high school football this year.
Well, and it's been an awful lot of fun for me to get closer to the WPIAL, and that was one of the things I was talking to Coach Kasparowicz about before the game. Is I really wanted to become closer and understand more about all the traditions and the teams of the WPIAL, and I think that's important. For me anyway. I mean, that's just what I like to do, and so we'll see how it goes. All right. Well,
Yep.
Hopefully we'll see everybody with the recap show next week. I'm sure you'll dig up something to talk about, Ian, as far as stats and everything else. But for Ian, I'm Badge. Hey, listen, thanks for hanging with us. on the WPIAL Blitz Show Hershey edition. We'll see you next week with the recap.